I don't understand girls. Didn't you pick up the missus just a few days ago? Mariam asked. Waves of heat rose off of the pavement after another sweltering day in Hobans. Liam stood at the entrance of an alley, chatting with Mariam and his patrol as a pair of men delivered his latest catch. He didn't fancy the notion that he was slacking off a bit, but getting on the good side of the people that he directly worked with was worth a few momentary distractions. I did, Liam answered, but she's not happy. Actually, I think I might have gone funny in the head. How do you figure? He reflected on his actions since Nat moved in. There was definitely something wrong with him. I'm doing things that I wouldn't if I was still on my own, Liam said. Did you see all that stuff that I bought? It's like this weird sense of responsibility kicks in and I have to make sure that everything is enough. I barely think about it, it just happens. Welcome to manhood, one of Mariam's squad mates said. I got like that once my girl said our first kid was on the way. Does that mean she's pregnant? Did it? They had held hands. I don't think so, Liam purged his mind of the memory. She just moved in at the beginning of the week. Wait, Mariam said, so you fixed up your place to make her happy and she's still bitchin'. Nat doesn't complain, Liam said. She just seems unhappy about something. But whenever I ask if anything is wrong, she says that everything is fine. The patrolmen exchanged grave looks amongst themselves. That means something's wrong, one of them said. You'd better figure it out before it blows up in your face. At first, he thought he might be pushing Nat too hard with her leatherworking, but she always did far more than he suggested. She was even proud of the results, showing off all of the goods that she crafted when he returned from the city every day. The quality of her work upon moving in was already good enough that she could sell what she made, and she had set up a stall on their plot with a modest inventory of shoes, bags, aprons, boots, and belts. Their neighbors were turning in various things to be repaired, as well, so Liam was sure that she was already well on her way to realizing a fulfilling life where people appreciated her talents. As the days passed, however, the part of her that seemed dissatisfied with her situation never went away. His current theory was that her cultural and religious upbringing was being challenged by her new experiences, and that was the source of her troubles. If that was what it was, then things were going in the right direction. It meant that Liam was helping to unravel the heretical worldview that Nat had been raised with. What do you think of her work, by the way? Liam asked. Her work? Mariam frowned. Well, I think you went a bit overboard setting up a whole damn workshop for her on your plot, but that's none of my business. For us, it means we don't have to walk across the whole damn camp to get our boots patched up. So you don't think it's wrong, right? It's peculiar, but I don't have anything against it. It's not as if she's single and trying to do the same thing. I guess it might be kinda the same as if she married into a workshop. He had been wondering how that worked. Nearly every workshop lease and business license in the Holy Kingdom was held by a man. There were only two notable exceptions that would lead to this not being the case. The first was that the individual who owned the business had no male heirs and their eldest daughter inherited it. The second was that a woman's vocation was so rare it might be considered deviant, such as those of arcane artisans. Broadly speaking, this was how it was in all of the northern human countries. Men inherited first and thus owned pretty much everything. They did almost all of the fighting and conducted most of the business. This resulted in what Director Alpha called a patriarchal society, though everyone else didn't call it anything at all. It was just the way things were. Tribal demi-humans generally went with the rule of the strong, so how they perceived women depended on how strong their women were relative to their men. Liam hadn't given much thought to it at all until a certain girl kept insisting that wife was a valid vocation. She was very defensive about her position, too. One day, she had been horrified to find him washing his own clothing and chased him away with her all. The two men who went to deliver Liam's catch returned from the gatehouse. Liam scaled the alley wall, padding across the rooftops to shadow the patrol's progress. For the past few days, he had been working to deter any sneaks in the area by associating the street patrols with getting mysteriously captured. This seemed to work for all but the most dogged of intruders, which he was now sorting out. While doing all of that, he was also familiarizing himself with the residents. This was probably the hardest part of his work so far due to the sheer number of them. However, it was necessary. Without knowing who belonged and who didn't, he would have no clue who might be an agent from another house. Of course, This didn't help at all against residents who were already in another house's pocket. Liam's steps quickened as his eyes latched onto a shadow cast by the waning moonlight. He closed the distance within a minute, gripping his mark by the back of the neck and driving it to the tiles. As his hand searched for any weapons, a scream pierced his ears. He muffled the woman's cries as quickly as he could, holding her down as she continued to kick and scream into his gauntlet. Her struggles were eventually replaced by sobs, and the noise leaking out from under his palm sounded very much like a desperate prayer. He continued his search, which only turned up a single dagger. Nothing marked her as an agent from another house. Everyday women in the Holy Kingdom didn't sneak around on the rooftops in the middle of the night, however. He bound her legs and wrists and gagged her. This caused her struggle to begin anew, but she quickly tired out. Liam returned to the street to turn in his vanquished adversary, but the reception from the patrol was dubious. "Liam, what the hell?" "She was a screamer," Liam told them. "Was that what that sound was? I thought someone was skinning a cat." Liam dumped the woman onto the pavement. She looked up at him with a baleful blue eye. "Or, you made her cry." "She made herself cry," Liam corrected him. The woman probably thought she was being attacked by a rogue. Not that she was wrong, but people here had all sorts of strange ideas about them. "You should probably keep her gagged," Liam told the patrol. "She might start screaming again. Here's her dagger." A muffled curse stopped Liam on his way back up to the rooftops. He looked over his shoulder to see the woman darting across the street. It appeared that the patrol had removed her restraints to walk her back to the gatehouse. "Hey!" one of the men shouted, "get back here." As if she'll listen. He dropped back into the alley and sprinted after her. Since she was now technically a fugitive, he was legally allowed to pursue her through another jurisdiction. Liam shadowed her through the dimly lit alleyways, her breathless panting filling his ears. "Her conditioning is crap. What was the point of sending someone like that to our side?" Liam had to remind himself that pretty much no one but Ijania trained their agents to his degree. The Holy Kingdom shunned his line of work as an evil occupation, so any rogues that the nobles ended up employing to serve as his opposite number would most likely be clueless novices. That didn't mean they couldn't overwhelm him with numbers, however, so he kept his eyes peeled for potential allies of his mark. The woman's path eventually led her to a warehouse guarded by a group of liveried men. She made no attempt to stay concealed, instead storming right past them with a furious expression. Liam scaled the side of the warehouse, frowning as he listened to the not-so-quiet discussion within. "Esme. By the gods, what happened to you? You lied to me, Julio. You said it would be safe to look around. You're one of our best, Esme. How could anyone? They had a rogue. I was nearly raped." Liam poked his head into an open ventilation port. In a pool of lamplight at the center of the warehouse, the woman collapsed and broke into a bout of tormented sobs. One of the men knelt to place a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She slapped it away. "Don't." Esme screeched, "Oh gods, I can still feel his hands all over me." The man rose, staring down at his open palm. "Those knaves," his hand curled into a fist. "I never imagined that House Rastello would fall so low." "Do you think the rumors are true, then, Lord Julio?" a second man asked. "This does lend more weight to their credibility," Lord Julio said, "but, practically speaking, those rumors still don't make sense. Why would Rastello turn on Iago Lauser? They literally own half of his assets. Beyond that, what the rumors describe is utterly fiendish. What if whoever did Lauser in is in Hobans now?" "No." Esme whimpered, crawling over to clutch the hem of Lord Julio's coat. "No no 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 no. I can't do this, my lord. I want to help, but this is too much. Please don't make me do this." Lord Julio reached down to gently stroke Esme's hair. "I won't, Esme," he said softly. "I'm sorry, this is my fault. What House Rastello's doing, it's simply unprecedented." "What do we do now, Lord Julio?" the man on the nobleman's right asked. "Do what you can to shore up our defenses," Lord Julio told him. "I'll reach out to the other houses. House Rastello must be stopped before Hobans is turned into another sea of blood." The gathering dispersed, leaving Liam thoroughly confused. There was no indication that House Rastello was up to anything beyond pursuing their ambitions in Hobans. Whatever they had supposedly done was enough to terrify people with the rumors and, As Lord Julio asserted, it was impossible for Liam to imagine that House Rastello was capable of doing anything like that. Everything about them was upright and sternly rigid. He returned to House Rastello's jurisdiction and headed straight to the gatehouse. The patrol that had lost Esme was standing in the captain's office, lined up in front of a rather displeased-looking Sir Jimena. "Liam," the knight said as Liam went to stand with the patrol. "I'm surprised you came back empty-handed." "Not exactly, sir. I'm waiting. I'm not sure whether you'd like to hear this yourself first, sir." Sir Jimena's eyes went to the men lined up beside Liam. "Resume your patrol. Everyone but Liam, out." The patrol went back down the stairs and Sir Jimena's escort walked out onto the wall. Liam idly mused over the notion that this was the moment when the knight would discover an assassin's blade buried in his throat, but, fortunately for Sir Jimena, Liam wasn't here for that. "Let's hear it," Sir Jimena said after seating himself. When the girl fled, Liam walked up to the captain's desk. "I used it as an opportunity to shadow her. She led me right back to the warehouse that she was operating out of. There was a nobleman there that the retainers called Lord Julio." Lord Julio over, Sir Jimena crossed his arms and leaned back on his chair. "Second son of House Over. What did he say?" "The girl's name is Esme. She claimed that House Rastello had a rogue working under them and that she was nearly raped as a result." Sir Jimena's face twisted at the last. "I assume that the alleged rogue was you. As for the rest, she was hysterical, sir. Also, there was something else that seemed to be driving her fear." Lord Julio and his men referred to a rumor. One that involved someone named Iago Lauser. The knight rose to his feet, his chiseled features turned to stone. "We'll continue this discussion in the camp," he told him. So there was something. They left the gatehouse and headed straight to the camp office. Sir Jimena motioned for him to enter a side tent. Inside, Sir Luis was already awake, poring over a mountain of paperwork. He looked up at Sir Jimena and Liam with a question on his face. "Rumors about Lauser are starting to circulate in Hobans," Sir Jimena said. Sir Luis set down his quill and rose from behind his desk. The top of his head brushed up against the ceiling of the tent. "What are they saying?" he asked. "Liam. It's not just what they're saying, sir." Liam stepped forward. "People are also taking action. House Over sent an agent to spy on our jurisdiction. She was caught, but she escaped from the patrol escorting her to the gatehouse. I used her escape to justify shadowing her back to her base. Lord Julio Over was there, and the woman claimed that we were hiring rogues and that she was nearly raped." "I trust that the latter didn't happen," Sir Luis said. "No, sir." "Damn women adding fuel to the fire," the tall knight muttered. "What did Lord Julio say?" "He was appalled, sir. He and his retainers started talking about how House Rastello had fallen and they didn't understand why we would kill off a major business partner." The tent shuddered as Sir Luis drove his fist into his desk. "That's because we didn't," he grated. "We didn't do anything of the sort, and that's the very obvious conclusion that any decent, rational person would arrive at." "Then, what happened, sir?" "We discovered that Iago Lauser was doing business with enemies of House Rastello. Enemies of the Royalists and the Holy King. House Rastello's resources are focused on helping hold Hobans, so we asked a group of our allies to address the problem, and by addressing I mean setting the man straight on where his loyalties lie. Lauser was a commoner and commoners can have strange ideas about how the world works." "If that's the case, sir," Liam frowned, "how did it go from persuading him to killing him? He is dead, right?" "Presumably," Sir Jimena said. "There was a raid on his home and the labor camp built up around it. His people wasted no time letting everyone they came across know about what happened. Fortunately, they're out near the Kingswood and information doesn't get around very quickly in the country. No one's claiming responsibility for the raid," Sir Luis added. "Not that they would. Our allies claim that they had just arrived to negotiate with Lauser and were on the border of his territory when it happened. With how things played out, everyone naturally suspects that House Rastello's to blame." "What else did Lord Julio say?" Sir Jimena asked. "He ordered his men to shore up their defenses while he reached out to the other houses. He said something about stopping House Rastello before we turn Hobans into another sea of blood." The sharp click of Sir Luis' tongue was followed by several moments of silence. "Raising our guard will only serve to reinforce their outlandish suspicions," Sir Jimena said. "We can't let them walk all over us," Sir Luis countered. And House Rastello will not take their slander like a toothless debone harlot. It's an affront to everything that we stand for. In that case, the other knight said, our only viable option is to attack. Liam looked back and forth between the two knights. Attack, sir? A political and economic offensive, Sir Jimena said. We need to gain as much influence over the capital as we can. If you didn't realize, House Over is supposed to be one of our allies. I highly doubt that we can settle the rumors surrounding Laozu anytime soon, so we've effectively become an independent faction in Hobans. If the other houses sense weakness, they will move to exploit it. We need to build up enough strength in every aspect to deter them. Sir Luis snorted. That's easier said than done. We had to work in concert with the other houses to control the economic climate of the capital. That's one thing working in our favor, now, Sir Jimena noted. Our efforts worked because everyone was working together. Putting a hole in their little boat should be easy, especially if we do it in our jurisdiction. Fair, Sir Luis admitted. But what about the rest? We're outnumbered and we'll be crushed if push comes to shove. The new companies are nowhere near ready. The standard we're holding them to isn't necessary for what we can have them do, but we'll have to convince Lord Rastello of that. Once Jorge and Perez are awake, we'll see what we can come up with. Liam, how do you think the houses will move on your end of things? I don't know the character of each house, sir, Liam replied, but something like today, at least. The scouting, I mean, not the other stuff that happened. If every house in the city sends agents to snoop around our jurisdiction, I'm not sure if I'll be able to keep up. Do we even need to stop them? It's not as if we're doing anything bad. There were benefits and detriments to letting intelligence agents flow freely. The Sorceress Kingdom was the extreme case where they allowed spies to gather information as a way to reassure the neighbors of their benign intent. That strategy was double-edged, however. House Rastello might be able to show everyone that they weren't doing anything wrong, but their enemies would also see their every move and come up with countermeasures for them. Unlike the Sorceress Kingdom, House Rastello couldn't just shrug off any attack. You're correct that we won't be doing anything wrong, Sir Jimena said. But we also don't want the other houses reading us like a book. We're on the back foot, strategically speaking, and being able to move and react faster than anyone else will be our main advantage. Let's get back to our posts, Luis. I'll see you later in the morning. As expected, the knights weren't the simple brutes that so many perceived knights to be. If all of the other houses in Hobans had leaders of similar caliber, the fight for the capital was going to be a tough one. No unwelcome reports greeted Sir Jimena upon their return to the gatehouse. The knight went over the pier across the rooftops of the city through the office's arrow slits. If you were intent on doing harm to our jurisdiction, Sir Jimena asked, what would you do? That depends on the objective, sir. The rules haven't changed. Undermining our ability to get ahead or even forcing us to give up our holdings would be the goal. With this weather, arson. Assuming having fires would make us lose face. But you don't need someone like me to do that. Honestly, sir, I'd be more concerned with what goes on during the day than what happens at night. And why might that be? Because it's easier to figure out whether someone's doing something suspicious or not at night than it is to figure out whether one of the thousands of citizens going back and forth between jurisdictions during the day is up to something. The rumor might work in our favor there, though. Sir Jimena turned from the window to fix Liam with a sharp look. How so? Fear, Liam shrugged. Just like that sneak from tonight. I restrained her and searched her for weapons and she decided that she was being raped by a rogue. She had a long time to think about what happened on her way back to Lord Julio, but her story never changed. Yeah, women are like that. Whether it's something that they like or something that they hate, if they make up their minds about something, it never ends. They never come at you straight, either. They work to destroy you in the most underhanded of ways. I'll have to address the men about their interactions with them from now on. Our enemies won't hesitate to use a parade of sob-stories to undermine our reputation. That's not what I meant, sir. As Sir Luis said, the entire thing is irrational. Irrational behavior driven by an irrational rumor. Reason jumped ship long before it arrived in Hobans. The knight grunted and walked back to his desk, scanning the new reports scattered across them. So you're saying that the monsters they've conjured out of these ridiculous rumors will keep them at bay? In part, sir, Liam said. They won't poke us so hard that they think we'll retaliate because they think our retaliation might drown Hobans in blood. At the same time, they'll be looking for evidence of our intent to do just that. They could exploit that in a handful of ways, but Liam doubted that House Rastello would approve of his methods. Then we have nothing overly exciting to look forward to until they become so desperate for results that they act rashly, Sir Jimena sighed. Still, that may come sooner than you think. I want you to keep the jurisdiction clean to the best of your ability. Speaking of which, what are your plans for equipment? If steel is drawn, a shirt and pants won't cut it. Liam looked down at himself. He was in a common laborer's outfit, save for his boots, belt and leather vest. The vest didn't offer much in the way of combat protection. He had bought it more for the extra pockets and to keep his shirt from being damaged as he moved through narrow spaces and climbed around. The leather workers in the camp are all focused on making everyday things, Liam said. I was thinking of getting Nat to make me some equipment. Your girl? The men have been saying good things about her, but do you think she's up to the task? It's either that or running around in this, Liam gestured to himself. I don't want to be caught unprepared if things take a violent turn. Let us know how that turns out, Sir Jimena said. If she does a good job, you're pretty much guaranteed to get some business from the office. We've been importing leather equipment from the south this entire time. I will, sir. She's been progressing smoothly, so it shouldn't be long until then. It sounded strange to say so as they had only been together for a few days, but it really was the case. He suspected that she had a high aptitude for her family craft when she mentioned her leatherworking skills and the fact that it had only taken her a few months to get to a post-journeyman level of skill. She was lucky that her family let her help out in the craft that she was good at to make her capabilities plain to Liam. At the same time, she was unlucky in the fact that that same family had sold her off regardless of their recognition of those skills. Or was that lucky? Going by her initial expectations for their relationship, she wouldn't have cultivated her capabilities any further if she had been married off to a local. The sun was already rising over the city by the time Liam returned to the rooftops, so spent the remainder of his shift reflecting on the night's events as he made a quick sweep over the jurisdiction. Had Lord Demiurge foreseen the current course of events? Assist in maintaining political deadlock in Hobans. He should have known that his new orders wouldn't be as easy as they initially appeared. His job now was to help House Rastello take on all of Hobans. Liam, I don't know about this. What's there to worry about? Liam said, I'm sure they'll be happy to see you. But he couldn't figure out what Nat's problem was. She voiced her desire to visit her family once in a while, but, now that they were, she was hesitant to do so. Within days of the incident with House Rastello rolled out several new initiatives to entrench its position in Hobans. One of them was a quiet outreach program meant to improve relations with the citizens under their jurisdiction. The main thrust involved alleviating the economic distress that the people were experiencing by reasonable increments until prices reached parity with the country's rural regions. This, of course, would conveniently increase their dependency on House Rastello and the industrial output of its labor camp. By doing so, they would appear to the city as saviors while also building up the citizens' resentment against the other houses. House Rastello's retainers were also instructed to open up to the citizens of Hobans, dropping the traditional exclusivity that rural powers usually practiced. It would probably take time for that to happen, but it surely would if the citizens reciprocated their efforts and were adopted as a part of their greater social hierarchy. Liam and Nat were currently doing their part by paying a visit to Nat's family in the city. In one hand, he carried a satchel filled with Nat's best work. In the other, he gripped a basket filled with food. At first, Liam thought that this would prevent Nat from holding hands with him as they walked through the city streets, but she ended up taking his elbow and latching onto him with a great big smile. As they got closer to her old home, however, the smile faded and her nerves started to show. The food is nice, she said, but I don't think the rest matters. Didn't your father praise you for your work before? Liam asked. He did, but that was before. You might have set up a workshop for me, but it's not as if I married into another workshop. They wouldn't care about this other stuff even if I did. No matter how many times he was exposed to it, his mind still railed at her logic. It was fine for her to help her family in their trade, but it was only fine to continue helping in that trade after marriage if she married into the same trade. There was also the rare occasion where a family's heir was a hopeless layabout and, in desperation, they married him to a woman in the same trade that might be able to maintain their license and guild membership. Otherwise, she wasn't supposed to. It wasn't a hard rule, but social expectations were so strong that it may as well have been one. My parents are going to yell at me. Nat cast a glum look at the cobblestones. I just know it. B Company appreciates your efforts, Liam said. Even a company is coming to you for stuff. They don't think it's a bad thing. They're only doing it because I'm your wife. I wouldn't get any business if I wasn't. I'm pretty sure that isn't the case. Nat was really good at leatherworking. It was crazy how good she was. When he thought he had never seen a piece of equipment so well made before, something that surpassed it would pop up the next day. Even so, she continued to insist that it wasn't much and that she was just trying to be helpful to him. She even tried to give him all of her earnings to spend on whatever he wanted. Nat? An older Nat stopped sweeping the pavement in front of a modest storefront, staring wide-eyed at them. Good morning, Mother, Nat said. Nat's mother propped her broom against the wall before sweeping her daughter up in a hug. Oh, thank the gods you're all right. I thought you'd be shipped to the south and we'd never see you again. They didn't even tell them where she'd end up. It made a sort of sense. If they were in a meaner place, relatives or friends might endeavor to rescue the enslaved. This was especially the case when the slaves had been captured in a raid or otherwise abducted from their homes. In the Holy Kingdom, however, debt bondage was no worse than an apprenticeship and was a form of legally binding financial restitution. Technically, she could earn her way out of her marriage, which was what Liam hoped she would do, but, so far, she seemed fully intent on sticking to him like glue. How has everyone been? Nat asked. We're holding out, Nat's mother answered. Well, it hasn't even been 2 weeks since you left. Things are as they were before, -1. Who is this young gentleman? Liam straightened involuntarily. This is Liam, Nat smiled. He's my new husband. Liam works as a thief-taker in the city for House Rastello. He fixed a smile onto his face as Nat happily rattled off his specifications. That much, at least, was expected. At the end of Nat's presentation, her mother, whose name was Josefa, seemed suitably impressed and invited them into the shop. Jose, Nat's come to visit. Jose. Liam examined the shop's offerings as Nat's mother vanished into the back. Leatherworkers were divided into 3 types in the Holy Kingdom: cobblers, armorers, and those that produced everyday items for industry and civilian use, such as belts, straps, upholstery, harnesses for logistical operations, and so on. Nat's family workshop was part of the last category, though Nat herself had proven that such categorizations were technically meaningless at her level of skill. How long has your family been in the leatherworking business? He asked. I'm not sure, Nat answered. My father's father was a leatherworker, at least. I think the shop is older than that. While family history was important to the nobility, it was only as valuable as proving one's inheritance rights to most. Not that Liam could talk, he didn't even know where his father and mother had come from, only that they were poor and did anything that they could to survive. Josefa returned with a thin, plain-looking man in a work apron. Nat had clearly inherited all of her features from her mother. They went to stand opposite the counter from Nat's parents. The man scrutinized Liam for a long moment before clearing his throat. Name's Jose, he said. I hope my Nat hasn't disappointed you in any way. What kind of introduction is that? Liam glanced at Nat, but she only continued to smile beside him. Liam, he stuck out his hand. I've only known her for a little while, but she's been full of pleasant surprises. That so? In that case. Jose leaned forward to shake Liam's hand. Nat took the food basket and placed it on the counter. We brought some gifts, she said. It's not much, but... She pulled back the cloth to reveal 3 loaves of bread, a wheel of cheese, 5 smoked fish, and 2 bottles of peach cider. Though she said it wasn't much, prices in the city were so high that it was probably unaffordable for her parents as a single meal. Oh, my. Josefa raised her hand to her mouth. Liam, you shouldn't have. Nat bought everything, actually, Liam told her. Nat's fingers dug into his arm. Josefa's elated expression faltered. Jose frowned. I don't understand, Josefa said. What do you mean by that? As I mentioned, Liam smiled. Nat's full of surprises. She's been doing a little bit of work during the day. He placed the satchel filled with Nat's crafts on the table. Nat's parents exchanged a look. Liam, Josefa said, we'd like to speak with your wife alone if you don't mind. 5 minutes later, Nat rejoined Liam on the street. I got yelled at, she sniffed. Liam took the satchel from her hands, placing an arm around her shoulder as he led him from her old home. My father said that you only set up a workshop because I'm not pleasing you as a woman, Nat said. He said it means I'm nothing but a tool to you. Mother said that I should be focusing my energy on giving you children, not playing in the workshop like a little girl. Maybe they deserve to be eaten by demi-humans, after all. That's not true, Liam said. I like the Nat that's good at leatherworking. If that's true, then why don't you? A set of whistles sounded from down the street. Mariam and a few other men walked up to them. Armsman, get these two lovebirds off of the street, he said. It's too early in the morning for all their flirting. Really? Liam released Nat's shoulder. I thought Jorge said that it was a joke. Mariam grinned, then looked at Nat. Is he always this serious? I know he's a real workhorse, but damn. I think so. Mariam sadly shook his head. You can't be all business all the time, Liam, he said. You'll fall apart. Taking a walk around the city with Nat isn't going to make me fall apart. Where are you two heading? Mariam asked. We just paid a visit to Nat's parents, Liam answered. We're just wandering around now. Make sure you make it look good, Mariam told them. You two are real lookers, so you'll be extra effective at influencing people. Was it all right to say that in the middle of the street? He supposed it didn't matter for what they were doing. It was an obvious ploy that people went along with anyway, much like using pretty girls or handsome men to serve customers in shops and at market stalls. A set of wives appeared to drag Mariam and his goons away. Liam examined the storefronts, then pointed to a sign he didn't recognize. What's that place? A witch lives there, Nat told him. We shouldn't go close. Why? Because she might cast a curse on you. Wouldn't that count as assault? Liam frowned. She'd be arrested for that. It's magic. And she'll just use her magic to magic the guards. That sounded like a losing fight to him. Even combat casters didn't last long in sustained combat, never mind an artisan. She would be overwhelmed by the authorities in no time. Liam took Nat's hand and walked straight toward the magic caster's shop. Liam, what are you? Let's go and see what she sells. This is a bad idea. The door wasn't locked and a bell chimed to announce their arrival. Inside, a child-sized spider looked up at them from the counter. It's her. Nat squealed. That's the magic caster? Was she eating insects to save money? Food was pretty expensive in the capital, after all. Hi, Liam walked up to the counter. Are you trying to talk to a spider? A blonde woman in an immaculate white robe came out from the back of the shop. The spider skittered out of the way as the woman walked up to the counter, crawling up the nearby wall to sit upside down over the entrance. Nat scurried to the other side of Liam. What can I help you with? The woman asked. I'm new to the neighborhood, Liam answered. I just wanted to see what you had here. That's not something I hear every day, or ever. Aren't you the Abarca girl? Nat backed away, her eyes filled with terror. Why, you know who I am? You live right across the street, the mage furrowed her brow. Does that mean no one brings you any business? Liam asked. How do you survive? I'm a magic caster, the woman shrugged. I can survive on mana. It doesn't taste very good, though. Well, I say that, but conjuration's making a relatively pretty penny these days. Liam looked past Raquel at the shelves behind the counter. There wasn't anything overtly magical, just jars and boxes filled with spices, sugar, herbs, and unappetizing-looking bread. So you're a conjurer? No, but every wizard knows a few conjuration spells. Learning magic's expensive, so sometimes you just have to buckle down and eat the nasty stuff. Then what's your speciality? Liam asked. Abjuration. A shield mage, if one goes by common vernacular. Before the war, I enchanted stuff for the military. Now, I summon this tasty bread. Oh, the name's Raquel. Liam. This is Nat. Pleased to meet you. Nat continued to cower behind his shoulder. Liam put the satchel of her goods on the counter. "Since you can enchant items," he said as he rummaged through the sack, "can you do something with this?" "Let's see." Raquel picked up the bracer placed between them. It was fashioned out of hardened Lanka leather and ribbed with steel boning. Since Liam hadn't set up a furnace or forge for Nat, she had to rely on the camp's smiths for the metal bits. This conveniently had the side benefit of keeping her focused on her leatherworking. It was Nat's first piece of armor, one of them, at least. The bracer was one of a pair, and the other had been thoroughly beaten up when the company went overboard with testing. Cuts with anything up to an arming sword couldn't get through. Larger blades could probably be blocked, as well, but Sir Jimena looked so enthusiastic about proving his longsword skills that Liam was pretty sure he would have broken his arm, successful block or not. Piercing attacks could get through, but the steel boning kept thrusts from most swords and daggers from penetrating too deeply. Practically speaking, it was next to impossible to penetrate with anything larger than a dagger. A rogue ideally closed inside the measure of battlefield weapons and most sidearms, making it next to impossible to stab with them. Additionally, since rogues relied on agility for defense, lining up a good stab against an unrestrained rogue was far more difficult than it seemed. In all, Nat's armor, well, good leather armor in general, was the best option for agile melee combatants in an urban setting. Leather was superior to plate and chain against bludgeoning damage and just as good as chain against slashing attacks for someone who relied on agility for defense. It was also less cumbersome and didn't make as much noise. Of course, using lightweight metals like mithril would put other types of armor on top. The Holy Kingdom had nothing of the sort, however, at least nothing that was accessible to most. "This is pretty nice," Raquel said. "Where's the other one?" "It's being repaired," Liam said. "I just wanted to know what you can do with that." "A whole lot," the mage replied. "I need both bracers, though." "You can't enchant one, then the other?" Raquel laughed. "That's not how it works. If people could decide what can be enchanted where, they'd wear 40 wristbands and 20 necklaces, all with a different enchantment. Bracers occupy the wrists. That means no bracelets, wristbands, armbands or anything else that goes there working at the same time. You make it sound as if they're accessories, not armor. I get that every time the army sends a new procurement guy. That's just how enchanting works. No amount of arguing will change anything." "Then how should I make things as a leatherworker?" Nat asked. "I don't think there's anything wrong with the quality of your armor," Raquel said as she checked the inside of the bracer, "but certain things do matter if you're making pieces to be enchanted. The spots you have to especially be careful of are the torso, abdomen, arms and legs. I've had guys thinking that their breastplate, spaulders, pauldrons, rear braces, counters, and all of the rest of those bits and pieces could hold separate enchantments. But it's all one spot dash body. So I shouldn't make a leather cuirass for enchantment, it should be everything that covers the body spot." "Exactly," Raquel smiled and nodded. "A magic item is one piece. If you have only a cuirass enchanted, you leave a whole bunch of areas unprotected. You can make pieces to cover those areas afterwards, but they won't be part of the enchanted armor and receive none of the perks of being enchanted." "There are perks?" Nat furrowed her brow. "Sure are." Raquel disappeared behind the counter, reappearing with a pair of shears. "Watch this," she grinned. Nat sucked in a horrified gasp as Raquel started chopping away at the sleeve of her fancy white robe. The mage's grin turned into a frown as she continually failed to cut the cloth. "Hold on, this is harder than I thought it would be." "You should keep your tools sharp," Nat told her. "They are. Grr, maybe I need a man for this. Liam, rip off my clothes." Liam reached out to grip her proffered sleeve, then jerked as Nat pinched him. "Ow? What was that for?" "Nothing." He looked down at his forearm. There would definitely be a bruise. In the end, Liam had to brace his feet against the counter and pull with all his might to rip off Raquel's sleeve. Nat's mouth fell open as the magic item mended itself in a blink. "Does that work for any clothing?" she asked. "Only masterwork crafts or better can be enchanted," Raquel answered. "That includes clothing." "Then wouldn't it be better for people to have magic clothing?" "More than a few enchanters advocate for just that, and all of them have their own enchanted clothing. Magic items are tougher, self-mend and fit themselves to the wearer. The problem's that we'd run out of enchanting reagents long before we could make magic clothes for everyone. Also, despite how it looks, this robe will still need to be repaired after it takes enough damage. It just stays as a single, functional piece until it breaks entirely. I see. But it looks much tougher than regular clothing. Does that mean enchanted armor gives that much more protection? Yes and no. Enchanted armor is tougher, but, unless it's enchanted to provide extra protection, it acts as if it's unenchanted armor against attacks. A clean hit against someone will go right through the armor to hit the wearer. People trying to attack the armor itself have to deal with the magical properties of the item. I don't get it. Most people don't. Our country isn't very advanced when it comes to this stuff, so they have a very mundane perspective. Then, Liam smiled to himself as Nat and Raquel went off into their own little world. For all of her trepidation before trying out new things, Nat quickly became engrossed in discussion once those things became relevant to her vocation. At the same time, it was sad considering her family lived right across the street. Superstition and fear had kept them from establishing a profitable relationship with Raquel. So how much will enchanting those braces cost? Liam asked after browsing through the shop for an hour. There's actually a problem, Raquel told him. I don't see a master's mark on this. Does it need one? Yeah. Guild regulations. Members of the Magician Guild can't enchant any items that aren't recognized by the Merchant Guild and its affiliates. Those are the rules. I thought this was from the Abarca shop when you first showed it to me, but Nat says you've opened a workshop in one of the labor camps. It's not exactly a workshop like you see in the city. It's just a working space that I set up for Nat. Either way, Raquel told him, my hands are tied until that workshop is recognized by the guilds. We should go and get that done, then. Is it hard? Technically, no. But if you're on the noble side, you might run into other problems. Now that they needed the city on their side, House Restello's actions when they were a part of the royalist faction were biting them in the ass. Clearing the bad air between them wouldn't happen instantly, if ever. No, the nobles and their people are probably all as bad as Nat. Magic items were so rare in the Holy Kingdom that very few considered them an option for equipment. The temples made up most of the country's magic item production and all of their work went to themselves and the government. On top of that, Roble was worse than even Riestais when it came to the integration of magic into everyday society. He hadn't seen a single pouch of infinite water or any other invaluable magical tools for civilian life during his entire stay. The Leatherworker Guild should be around here, shouldn't it? Lam asked. It's just down the street, Nat answered. We'll be back once we get that taken care of, Liam told Raquel. He yawned as they made their way to the guild office, peering up at the midday sun. Unlike the market plazas and warehouse areas of Hobans, things were relatively quiet in House Restello's jurisdiction during the day. The tiny corner office that served as the Leatherworker Guild was empty, save for the sole receptionist who rose from behind his desk as they entered. Nat. I thought that. I didn't go far, Nat smiled. This is my new husband, Liam. Liam, this is Guildmaster Abarca. Abarca? He's my uncle. Nat turned to the Guildmaster. Liam started a workshop. We need to get registered. Registered? I don't recall a new shop opening up anywhere. It's in House Restello's labor camp. Silence fell over the office. Liam shifted uncomfortably as the Guildmaster's gaze went back and forth between Liam and Nat. To begin with, Guildmaster Abarca said, we'll need to assess your work. Liam placed the samples originally meant to be shown off to Nat's father on the table. The Guildmaster pulled out a tool belt and took his time examining it. You've gotten better, he said. If only your brother did some work instead of staying up late with his hooligans and sleeping in every day. Well, it's not as if there's much to do with things as they are right now, Nat replied. He'll work when there's work. When can we finish the registration? It'll take a few days for the members to submit their assessments. From the looks of it, they shouldn't voice any issues over the work itself. Make sure you have your dues ready. Thanks, Uncle. MHM. Liam followed Nat as she left the office with a skip in her step. There was far less resistance than he had expected. Do you think everything will be all right? He asked. I'm sure it will, Nat answered. Anyone who doesn't approve of our shop's products doesn't deserve the title of master. Nat had an odd way of flipping back and forth between being a submissive wife and a proud professional. At times, it was almost as if he was dealing with two different people. But what about the tension between the craft guilds and the nobility? Uncle will do something about it. Wait a minute. Had they just effortlessly rolled through a mountain of thorny issues using the power of nepotism? His preparations for working with the Ministry of Transportation labeled that kind of thing as corruption. Then again, the Sorceress Kingdom was the only country he knew of that saw it as a problem and actively did anything about it. So, if we use a country's customs to our advantage, is that good or bad? He was in a foreign country and he had to play by their rules. At the same time, however, the laws of the Sorceress Kingdom were in place by the divine will of their god. Was it alright for Liam to disregard them simply because he wasn't at home? Liam shook his mind free of meandering thoughts. Now wasn't the time to be second-guessing himself, he had a job to do. That detour took up a lot of time, Liam said, but is there anything else you want to do? Let's go back and have lunch. Nat latched onto his free arm, beaming so brightly that he thought that she was trying to compete with the sun. After I fix your braces, she said, I should work on the next piece. Sorry about the braces. Those guys got too excited about trying to chop my hand off. It's all right. Well, a part of me is relieved since it works. Another part is mad because they damaged it while trying to chop your hand off. Do you need anything special for the next piece? I think I'll be all right, Nat said. I just have to get my hands on an example. It's weird, all I have to do is look at something and I can figure out how to make it. I thought you had to work under a master for years and become a master yourself to be able to do that. I told you that you have talent, Liam replied. You'll probably be famous one day. That's just silly, Nat giggled. Besides, I don't care about being famous. All I want is... It's nothing. I wonder what they're serving for lunch today.